I think it really depends on what you're comfortable doing. Some people are good typists, and so typing, they get to speak faster. Sometimes the thoughts come too quickly for the pen, and sometimes it's good to slow your brain down so that you are only really thinking as quickly as the pen can go.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi, and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. My name's Rick Nusky, and on today's show, I'm on the line with the wonderful MARCI BROCKMANN. How are you, MARCI?
I'm well. How are you, Rick?
I'm very well. Yes, it's wonderful to have you here. Now, MARCI and I were just talking about her wonderful new book, Permission to Land, and we're going to be talking about that. There it is on the screen, wonderful, of which we will be making available links back to MARCI and this wonderful book at the end of the call. But what we do, and it is customary for us to do, is spend a bit of time, MARCI, to learn a little bit more about you and how it was that you came to this point in time that you've written this book. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your journey to this point with the My Future Business audience?
Sure. I had this idea percolating in my mind since my mother died about 6 years ago. And I was telling some of these stories that I wove together in my memoir to my students and friends and family and people that I met. And it was extraordinary, the connections that I was making with people, because we all have faced trauma in various aspects of our lives. Yeah. And my mother was addicted to opioids, and this epidemic that is crossing the world right now is pervasive. And she had been an undiagnosed bipolar for all of her life and was quite miserable. And that's unfortunate, but it also negatively affected me. So when I originally started writing, I didn't start writing until October of 2019. When I originally started writing, I was just trying to craft my story of my relationship with her through her bipolarity and through her narcissism and through her drug addiction. And in telling my story, what I realized was that it wasn't so much necessarily about her, mm-hmm. but it was about me and my anxiety that was caused by her mental illness and my own addictions to people pleasing and sublimating my own needs and my own desires and my own goals to make other people happy. And it set up a rather unhealthy pattern of relationships for me for all of my adolescence and a good 3 decades or so of my adult life. And what I've realized is that I'm not alone in these experiences or these feelings, but they are so common, sad, common among everybody, mm-hmm. That I felt really compelled to writing this book, because it's a pathway to living a healthier life, to finding the love, the safe and nurturing home, and the sense of community and belonging that we all need. And so I'm hoping that people will take the journey with me and discover the tools that I learned through therapy and expressive writing to make my life a better place to be, and they'll be able to apply them to their own lives.
This is wonderful. I've seen the book and I've looked at some of the reviews. They're wonderful. I know that a lot of individuals do suffer through life, and I noticed in your bio that you used to sit underneath the craft room desk and pretend that you were painting Michelangelo's painting, Sixteenth Chapel. And
I was
You've obviously had a long love of painting as well. Has that helped you work through these times as well?
Absolutely. When I was a kid and as a teenager, when I could have, I should really, if I could reach back in time and thank my younger self, I would. But where it would have been so easy for me to fall off the beaten path and use unhealthy means of coping. Yeah. What I did instead was turn to writing and turn to painting and drawing. And I've always had this need to create things. And then after my mom died and after my divorce, and then my mom died, mm-hmm. I turned to painting again as solace. And I wasn't really aware that that's what I was doing,
Yeah.
but that's what I was doing. I've been keeping journals on paper or on my computer since 1985, so the writing never stopped. But what I started to do or started to see through painting was that it was teaching me to take a step back. It was teaching me to live more in the moment and not project back or forward, and to not be impatient and just sort of let things develop. And I found myself, it sounds cliche, but it's completely not.
Hmm.
I found myself while creating paintings, whether they were good enough to give away or sell, or they were just going to be painted over and turned into something else, it really didn't matter. It was the act of creation itself that made me get in touch with myself again.
So this was about expression, I guess, through the power of the pen and the power of the paintbrush.
Absolutely.
So what
Absolutely.
what did you find? Did you find that when you were writing early on, if we can look at your journaling over what 30 years, that's a
30
long
years,
time to be journaling. And did
long
you
time.
you
I've got
know
a big box full of books.
I'd love to help those who are listening to the call that are having similar life experiences, Marcy, work through the process of journaling. What did you do each day? Was it just a matter of having a little book by your side and just writing that you were angry or expressing your feelings or you were sad? How did that come about? What were you writing?
Yeah. I don't really remember the germination of it, how it actually started.
Mm.
I think for a while it was sort of haphazard and random when I wrote. And then somehow I got it into my 15-year-old brain that keeping a journal was a romantic thing to do.
Uh-huh.
Not in a love way, but in
Yeah,
a
yeah.
in a 17th century kind of way, like somehow I was going to be Jane Austen keeping a diary or some crazy thing. But when I go back and look, I wrote every single night before I went to bed, and I had a book, a nice hardbound book with a pretty cover and a pen that I like to write with. And every single night I wrote to myself, to whoever. I expressed feelings about being confused about my parents fighting because they were going through a very horrible divorce, and my dad left and I didn't hear from him for 6 months, and my mom was just too depressed and upset to notice anything that was going on with me, and I didn't understand what was going on. I was a kid, so teenager. So I would just write about disillusionment. I'd write about my friends. I wrote about things that were going on in school, or boys that I liked, or whatever was going on. And
Hmm.
sometimes very detailed things about what was going on in school, or an event or a fight or a disagreement I had with somebody, or the process of getting my first job, whatever was going on is what I was writing about. And there were a lot of entries that were very detailed, surprisingly detailed, about incidents I had with my mother and how I felt, and using those um, recollections, those memories from my younger self really informed my analysis of my behavior when I was writing the memoir.
Yeah, I'd like to come back to this again because I think there's another element to this because you've moved forward in your life, you've created yourself a wonderful career as an English teacher, which you also love, and you get a lot of joy out of helping adolescents find their place in life. Tell us a little bit about that and your views on adolescents nowadays that may be going through a similar thing as you were when you were younger. Do you see them in the schoolyards and work with them like that?
Yeah. I've been teaching 10th, 11th, and 12th grade English for 25 years.
Hmm.
And half my adult life has been spent with adolescents in an English classroom. And I personally feel like, for me, I'm the luckiest woman on the planet. This
Yeah.
is the perfect job for me. They pay me to talk to kids and get to know them and help them express themselves through words. And then we get to read great books and talk about them. What's better than that?
That's utopian.
Totally, what's better than that? What I've noticed over the course of my career, though,
Hmm.
is that there's been a really big shift in, I don't know how to put it, in the work ethic of a lot of students. and the time that they have to or are willing to devote to their studies. Now, granted, this is a sweeping generalization, and
Yep.
you know, and so on. But I find that kids, our world is so increasingly digitized. Phones are ubiquitous, and people got screens everywhere. And to get a physical paper book in front of kids and have them turn pages seems alien to them.
Foreign.
I think I know my own school district is moving a little bit more towards ebooks, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
where we were all forced to do distance learning for education. And the only way we could assign work to kids was digitally. So I think that's sort of helping the digitization,
Yeah.
that's a word.
Yeah.
Uh,
It is now.
it is now. Uh, but I think that what kids need more than ever before
Mm-hmm.
is emotional education instruction. They're not as emotionally intelligent. They're not as self-aware as they used to be. They're not as good at conversation face to face as they used to be, because everything is a text. And they don't know how to look another person in the eye
Mm-hmm.
and ask them a question or have a conversation or even be able to express how it is they're feeling and analyze that for themselves. They're not making sense out of it. And so I feel like even beyond where to put a comma in your sentence or learning vocabulary, or even reading classic literature, is the idea of being able to express themselves in writing. And so the writing course that I designed as an addendum or in conjunction with my memoir,
Mm-hmm.
it's really sort of an outgrowth of what I'm doing in my English classes. It's like a combination. It's partly the same questions I ask myself when writing Permission to Land, but it's also part of the free writing that I ask my students to do every single day in class. And I ask them the same questions. Name 15 words that you would use to describe yourself. What memories from your childhood make you feel safe? How do you deal with conflict in your family or in your friend group? Things like that really get them to think about themselves and how they feel about things and how that fits in with other people they know.
I love this cross pollination, if I might just add there, Marcy, about how you've taken your teaching skills and experience and now turning it into a program for people outside of the schoolyard, obviously, to embrace and get value from.
Thank you. I think the best ideas happen organically like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, I wonder, is this a book that you can go back to, or is it just a cover to cover read? How do people consume this content?
The journal thing or
Yes,
the memoir?
your memoir.
Yeah, the memoir is 400 pages. It's long.
Yep.
And it's, written like any other memoir, chapters and sort of a chronological look at my life, but it starts out at my mother's death.
Right.
And because that was really the impetus that got me started on this path of emotional wellness, so to speak. And I still battle with these same demons I dealt with then. I
Mm-hmm.
just deal with them having had 6 more years of therapy and 6 more years of life experience, and having undergone this big pervasive self-analysis to get to this place where I am now. I still have people-pleasing tendencies. I still find myself tiptoeing around other people's feelings when I don't need to, because that's the habit I fall back on. But I think that when we are aware of these patterns and we can name them and see them, we take the power away from them, and then cognitively can behaviorally get past them. I think it's a process. It's a
Yeah.
painful process sometimes, but it's absolutely doable.
We've talked about students and your program, but I think about this memoir and I think to myself, there could be some value in all different types of people, from parents and adolescents, reading this book to take a piece from your life and learn from it. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree. I happen to be a memoir reader, and I I swallowed up books like Educated by Tara Westover and Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert and The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And I just soak up these memoirs like Belonging by Michelle Obama. And all of these women are very different, and they're not directly, explicitly instructing us on the best way to live our lives, but
Mm-hmm.
through showing us how their decision making occurred and the events and the experiences that they had and what it taught them, it serves as a narrative example for what we might be able to do with our own lives. I think it's inspiring and slightly educational, if I may say so.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that my book, I'm hoping, is a benefit to people who are looking for a little inspiration or a little hope, who have dealt with similar traumatic issues in their lives and want to see how someone else handled them.
As a parent myself, Marcy, I often reflect on the negativity that I've seen in my own upbringing through parents, and it's happened. That's a fact. I think many of us experienced that. Do you think that it's made you a better parent?
Oh,
Your
absolutely.
your own life's experience?
100%. Absolutely. It sounds kind of crazy, but I used my mother as my cautionary tale.
Yep,
And
yep.
I have thought, like when I've reached a decision that I have to, something that I have to decide on, I think, all right, what would my mom do? And then I do 180 degrees opposite. Sorry,
Yep,
but it worked.
yep, absolutely. Yeah.
It worked. And the
We
tools that I learned in therapy to get myself over the things that happened with me because of my parents and their poor decisions as parents. I mean, they did the best they could. It's not like they
mm-hmm.
were malicious. They just didn't have the tools. But I've learned the tools. I've made it my life's work to learn the tools and raise my kids better than I was raised. So both my children are very self-aware and very introspective, and we have these deep philosophical conversations about all sorts of things. Um,
Is she an
and then when
artist? Does she like painting?
my daughter is an artist also, and my son is actually an engineer.
Oh, well, there you go. Some very
So
different.
on a different side of the brain. That's all.
Absolutely. No, that's wonderful to hear. Now, it seems to me that this didn't take too long to write for a memoir, which would normally take, I guess, somewhat of a lifetime. Is this because you've used all of the content in the journal? How did the actual writing process come about for you?
I think that helped. I had this idea last summer burning into my head, but I wasn't really ready to start writing yet. But I was doing a lot of journal reading
Mm-hmm.
and self-reflection. And then I enrolled in a writing course, not really a course so much as a writing group through an online magazine called The Elephant Journal. And as I was being inspired by the other writers in that group, I started writing, and I put finger to keyboard, instead of pen to paper, I guess, finger to keyboard on October 1st. And by December 15th, I had 121,000 words of the first draft
That is incredible.
literally poured out of me. There were times where I put my headphones on and I sat in this little corner of my house in my art studio, and I would write, and the next thing I knew, it was 9 hours later.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. When you have a story to tell, it's amazing how quickly this can happen. I want to touch on, if we can, I guess the more
Sure.
sensitive side of this story for you. What were the feelings that came forward for you? Did you obviously had lows, you had peaks. Take us through that side of it.
Through my initial draft, it was very, it was cathartic at the end, but
Mm,
during it, I found myself really upset at times when
yeah.
I was trying to figure out, when I was relating stories and incidents that happened when I was a little kid and my parents were fighting, or that happened when I was a teenager during the lowest of my mother's depression and my dad's disappearance. I was literally raising myself. And then I repeated the pattern of my relationship with my mother with my first husband, and found myself in a 12-year marriage of isolation and sadness and loneliness
Mm-hmm.
and fear. I was kind of afraid of him at times. And so when I was reliving those things, I was upset. I cried. I had a lot of sleepless nights. My current husband was extremely supportive and, would just hold me when I was inconsolable in the middle of the night because I just couldn't let the ghosts
Yes.
free.
Yeah.
Putting them out on paper was just like digging it all up and churning it all up for me. And it was excruciating to write
Mm.
in certain intervals. Um,
Yeah, I don't
but
mean to take you back to those moments, but I think it's important for people to
and
understand.
I think at this point, it's evident on the page what those emotions were. And I sent the first draft to my wonderful editor, the novelist Craig Lancaster, and he was just so amazing through the editing process. And he spent a couple of weeks going through the manuscript and on track changes in Microsoft Word would give me questions that he really wanted me to explore and delve into something and really flesh out a specific conversation or a lot more detail about something.
Hmm.
And I think he really helped me make a better book. It's drastically better through the editing and the revision than it was obviously the first time. That's what drafts are for.
Yeah, yeah,
But it was through that further excavation that I really got in touch with the heart of why certain behaviors happened and why things were so traumatic, and that maternal mama lion piece that impelled me to divorce him and to
yeah,
build a better life for myself and my kids. I hear a lot of women say that they're unhappy in their marriages, that they're miserable, they're lonely, they're afraid of their husbands, there's no connection, whatever the myriad of reasons why people would seek divorce. And they always say, what's that tried and true reason, that cliched BS reason, is they're staying in the marriage for the kids.
uh,
I started to think of it in the other way. I got divorced for my kids. I think if I didn't have children, I might have just stayed where I was. I might have just kept my relationship, the toxic relationship with my mother going, and kept the toxic relationship with my ex-husband going. But somewhere in the summer of 2006, it may have been something that a friend said to me, I suddenly saw that what I was doing for my kids was showing them that you shouldn't expect to be treated well, that you should allow people to treat you badly and to exist in toxic relationships, that there is no such thing as romantic love, that marriages are just a facade, and that people do sleep in separate bedrooms as a norm.
mm,
I felt like if I stayed, I was showing my kids all these awful things that would have been typed into their concept of what relationships were. And
yes.
that's 100% unhealthy.
Yeah, you were doing them a disservice by staying, weren't you?
Right. So I, one by one, got rid of all of these toxic relationships. I divorced my ex-husband and showed my kids that this is really how you should want to be treated. And I found I was dating, but keeping that private for them because they
Yeah,
were
yeah.
little. But, I was a woman. I had my own career. I bought my own home. I started an art business all on my own. And that's what they grow up seeing. They saw me fall in love with my husband, who I've been friends with for 30 years. And what a healthy relationship actually looks like. So that I did for myself, but it's also a really good example for my kids.
Yeah,
After
I'm
everybody else is reading the book, you can change your life.
I'm
You don't like
tingling. I'm
it,
sitting here thinking this is wonderful. I love the fact that you've got the, I guess, the strength to go, you know what, this is not the best way forward. Thank you so very much for sharing those powerful insights. They are very powerful. I want to just flip back, if we could, a little bit and go back to this the students for a second, because we talked about how they're going away from, they're going more digital. Now,
right.
as somebody who has paper and pen for the last 30 years, if we were to give some practical advice to those who want to start journaling because they've got all of these thoughts wrapped up in their head, they need to get them out.
Right.
Would you suggest that they start picking up the pen instead of trying to type it in? Is there a better or a worse way to do this?
No, I think it could go either way.
Right.
I sometimes do my journaling longhand, and I sometimes do my journaling on a computer. I have a pretty book that I write in with a purple pen, and I also have an app on my phone that syncs with my computer,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes I do it that way. I think it really depends on what you're comfortable doing.
Right.
Some people are good typists, and so typing, they get to speak faster. Sometimes the thoughts come too quickly for the pen, and sometimes it's good to slow your brain down so that you are only really thinking as quickly as the pen can go.
Yeah,
You know,
I often think about the mechanics of actually picking up a pen, because I know that there's some, like I said, there's some magic in that pen, because you're actually expressing yourself through the movement of the hand, the physical movement. But it doesn't really matter as long as you're capturing the essence of the message, doesn't it?
I think so. I think when my students are taking notes in class, I'm very adamant that they do it pen to paper because it does go through the brain extra times when you're taking notes and you're actually writing them out in longhand. So there may be some extra psychological benefit to keeping a journal in longhand with pen and paper,
Mm-hmm.
but not being a psychologist, I don't really know.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
No, that's
I've done it
fantastic.
both ways, and it really just depends on the mood that I'm in. At the course that I designed, which is called Permission to Land, Personal Transformation Through Writing,
Mm-hmm.
I offer as a digital download that people can type into a fillable PDF, but I'm also publishing it in an actual physical paperback book that's coming out in August. Um, because I suddenly began to think, just like you said, that people might actually want to put pen to paper and write it in a physical book.
Yeah.
So they can get it both ways from my website.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's
Depends
talk
on,
about that. Let's talk about your supporting course. What will somebody find in there? What is the process that you go through with them?
well, the book cover is just roughly the same. It's just a different subtitle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the physical copy of it yet because it's still being worked on. The
In the
book designer
works.
side. Um, what it is over 100 pages of guided writing prompts that will take somebody through their life chronologically, but also look at how you see yourself, how you what you used to be afraid of, what dreams you have, what kinds of things you want to communicate to your future or current children, how you do conflict resolution, how you chose your career or are planning to choose a career, and what kinds of things are meaningful to you as you go forward with your life, so that you're taking a reckoning of the past and being mindful of your present while trying to build a better future, trying to
Mm-hmm.
envision what you want for yourself in your future. And I also offer a free version, a free mini version of this, which is like a little over 20 pages, which is a sampling of these questions. And they're all available on the website on marcibrockman.com. And then as soon as the paperback version of it is available, it'll be available on the website and on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and
And all the
all those.
standard outlets. I wonder, is there another book in you? Are you interested in writing something more?
I have some very beginning rudimentary ideas. I want to try my hand at fiction now. I started writing a novel probably a decade ago. My son and I were going to write a book together, like a YA kind of novel. And we were at it for a couple of weeks and we have, a couple, maybe 40 pages of it written. And then he lost interest. He was in seventh grade. He's on graduate. So it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
But the story is still compelling to me. And I think I want to try my hand at that a bit.
Yeah, I can
Uh,
see you. I mean, it's just a wonderful thing to have children and have a relationship with them like that, and to be I guess a leader as a parent. You're doing some amazing things with this memoir. I know that people are going to take a lot of benefit from the work that you're doing. I know that there are a lot of families and kids out there that need your help, your work. So thank you very much for doing the work that you're doing. Now, importantly, when people want to find your work, your book, and you, where will they go?
MarciBrockman.com, MarciBrockmann.com. That's it. You get a link to the book, you link to all of my artwork, a link to the course. And I decided to offer a very inexpensive writing workshop next Wednesday. So on the 22nd of July at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for a cost of $8, which is really cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do an hour-long expressive writing workshop and use some of the tools that I have created in personal transformation through writing to give people a taste of the whole process and what it can bring to their lives. So that's also accessible through marcibrockman.com. It's
Thank,
all one.
Thank you so very much. Now, if anybody who's on this call today is wanting to do expressive writing and find an outlet, start using the power of the pen or the laptop, as it were, certainly visit Marci at marcibrockman.com. I will be making the links available back to Marci and all of her wonderful work. Marci, it's been just an absolute treat and a pleasure to spend some time with you on the My Future Business show today.
Thank you so very much for this opportunity. It was wonderful.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.